Hey, it's Rita here with this episode of the Deliberate Leader podcast. I am joined by Maryanne 𝗵𝗍. Maryanne is a dear colleague of mine. She is currently the head of operations at 𝗪𝗵𝗿𝗁, but she's had such an interesting career that I couldn't wait to bring her story to you. She is a leader at the moment. She's worked in multi-franchisee type businesses. She's worked as a business owner. She's worked in corporate environments here in Victoria, Australia. And she's now working in the not-for-profit sector as the head of operations at 𝗪𝗵𝗿𝗁. Her career has really been shaped by business coaching, by establishing, building and leading teams with a particular view on systematizing and really strong process orientation. Absolute gun at project delivery and people leadership. However, Maryanne has a different side, if you like, or slant to what she brings in leadership, and that is through the sport of boxing. She's been an amazing boxer for a very, very long time. She says that boxing is one of her key teachers in life, and for her, it's not just a sport or a workout. It's a self-discipline that she brings into every aspect of her life. It helps her build confidence, resilience, focus, and self-trust. It gives her a place to rest. She says it's her meditation, and really for her to clear her mind, to test out new ideas, but really bringing a very methodical and disciplined approach to how she boxes, but also how she leads. The lessons that Maryanne learns through boxing: preparation, presence, discipline, adaptability, and the willingness to continue to show up even when it's hard, continues to shape how she leads herself and supports others, and how she approaches her work. So please do enjoy this episode of the Deliberate Leader podcast with Maryanne 𝗵𝗍. Welcome to this episode of the Deliberate Leader podcast. I'm joined by Maryanne 𝗵𝗍. Maryanne, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you here. You and I have now known each other quite a while. I couldn't wait to have you on the podcast because I think you have such an interesting background, and what you bring to leadership, I think, is really, really special. So I'm looking forward to our chat today. We almost didn't hit record because we got into a conversation about lizards and cats and all sorts of things, which was fascinating. So we're going to have to continue that conversation because my son really wants a lizard, as I mentioned to you, Maryanne. So we're going to have to continue that conversation. But today is not about lizards.
Okay.
It's about leadership, hey? About leadership. So Maryanne, tell us a little bit about you, so the listeners can know who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. So I am an operational leader at the moment, and I've been in leadership for nearly 20 years. And that's going from owning businesses, working multiple franchises that I've had, coaching, fitness, and now I'm in the not-for-profit sector by choice, by deliberately choosing to be in the space where I feel like that's where I belong to now. As a person outside of my work, I am a boxer, so I still, till today, I fight. I'm in the ring. I had my last fight 2 weeks ago as a mature person, I guess, from that perspective. And I think for me, I don't know, boxing is one of those consistent teachers in my life that I take back to my workplace and lead through my boxing. Like I know a lot of people think that, boxing, fighting, aggression, but I don't see that. I see it as a way of living my life. I see it as going to work, being composed, as a leader. There's always pressure, there's always going to be pressure, but it's about how I pivot under that pressure and having to change my game plan. And that's just what I do in the ring with an opponent.
Yeah. So you and I were having a conversation last week.
Yeah.
And I wrote down your quote, and I'm going to read it out because it was one of those things that when I heard it, it literally gave me goosebumps. What you said was, what I do in the ring is how I live my life. Now, I've watched you fight and I've watched your talent. I had the pleasure of doing that back in, a few months ago, actually, before your last fight. And it was an amazing, like it was an amazing experience as a spectator. So, it was my first boxing fight, right? Yes, grew up watching Rocky, but it's very different, right? I know that.
Yeah.
But when you said, what I do in the ring is how I live my life, and having seen you in the ring and also having witnessed how you lead and how you intentionally lead, can you tell us a little bit more about, that quote and where it comes from? Like, give us some examples of what you do in life and how, it shows up in the ring.
Um, yeah, okay. So basically, boxing for me is it teaches me discipline and it teaches me reps. Like, there are times where I'll have to just practice like one punch, 100 times, hours on end, and it becomes just this concept. That's just the way you punch. So for me, it helps me. Um, it's like I need to lead myself. Like I build my courage, I can clear my head, and I practice. And so when I go to work, I need to be, I need to stay grounded under pressure, especially like when you work for organizations which are fast moving. I need to communicate clearly. I need to create structure. I need to adapt with what's happening in front of me. In the ring, it's the same thing. I could have a game plan and I could do all the training in the world, but when that bell rings, I don't know if my opponent's going to change on me. I don't know if what they give me is not what I've trained for. So I can't collapse and I can't be emotional and I can't, freeze. So I guess when I box and the learning and showing up every time and being courageous and just having to just go, this is just what it is, and just doing it. It's the same as when you're in an office or when you're leading teams. Like you can't collapse, and you can't, like you could collapse. I guess, and then I guess you can um, become avoidant or become controlling, but it's not going to get you the outcome. In the ring, it's the same thing. I can't just become, overloaded and become defensive or lose my control because my technique and what I've learned goes out the window, and I'm not going to be able to see the outcome that I'm after. So I guess when I link the two together, it's about doing the prep, knowing the plan, but being able to pivot and then being able to start to still continue to see where the outcome is. And
Yeah.
whatever that outcome is, it's about my values are always going to be in place.
All right.
Um,
I love it. I've written prep, plan, pivot. If anyone's following along, maybe you're not on a walk, maybe you're listening to this at your desk, write that down: prep, plan, and pivot. Because I reckon, like what you were saying there, you've got the fights I've seen, I saw you in was 3 minutes.
mm.
What's the longest one you've ever done, Maryanne?
So my last one was 6 minutes. So
Yeah.
my first one in April was 90 seconds, and that wasn't like like it just I had a plan in place, and I knew exactly what who she was, and what she does, and all that sort of stuff. And I planned. People are like, "Oh my God, you just got to be really careful of her." And I had to change because I sort of witnessed her in the first round. I just let her have her way, and just watched and observed like like a process improvement plan. And then I'm just like, oh, okay, I know what you're up to. So we just went in there, and within 90 seconds, her team ended up throwing the towel in. That was it. My second one, completely different. I trained up for a person who I was thinking was going to be from a karate background, which means that they are very jumpy. They'll get out of my way. They won't give me, they won't come anywhere near me. So I'm just like, oh my God, I've got to practice like a kangaroo. Like I've got to jump around. On the night before the fight, she pulled out and they found me another fighter who came forward. I'm just like, I can't fight this person. She's way too strong for me. She's experienced. She was more of she's a brawler, so she comes at you. I'm like, whatever, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. I just want to be able to go the 3 rounds. Let's go. And we jumped in, and she just literally charged at me. Like within seconds, she just like ran at me, and I'm just gone, moved out of her way, let her go, watched her settle down, and then I went in for round two and three, and I had the ground, so I made sure that I could just keep centering her, pushing her in the way that I wanted to go without getting aggressive. And when I'd finished off, everyone was like, you just stay composed, like you just don't let anything get to you. But inside I was like, inside I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? But I had to like that. My mind knew, like I knew what the outcome needs to be.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you go like in the boxing ring and obviously in leadership, in businesses, what's the technique? So you've talked to us about prep, plan, and pivot, but if you I'd love you to break that down a little bit for us. So kind of moment by moment when you've got your game plan, your strategy, and then the circumstances change, or you actually, you've got an idea of what to expect, but that changes. What's happening in your mind and your heart and your entire body? What's happening for you in that moment for you to be able to keep that level of composure? Because it really is a a skill that a lot of people don't have. How do you do it?
I um I reflect. I feel like I reflect a lot. Um like I'm not I don't do mindfulness, but there's a way of just grounding myself through my footwork. Like if I just stand up and just feel my feet on the ground and just take a moment and pause. Like I feel like in leadership is the same thing. Like it's not about having the answers and it's not about having control, but it's about stepping back, observing before I make a decision, asking the questions. I think that's what I do in the ring. Like my first round in a ring, like normally it's 3 rounds, and my first round will always be just letting that person go, like just observing, seeing what the behavior is like, and then adapting. Leadership's the same. Like leadership's like you go into a team, especially when you're new to a team, and you just watch on what's happening, like what is going on here. And then you can go away, and I know, like in most cases, there'll be a leadership team that you can just turn to and ask the questions and know that you're going to be supported. So it's not about having the right answers, but being able to lead the way from my values. So for me, it's important that I'm transparent. Transparency is a huge thing for me. And my integrity is a big thing, like doing what I say I'm going to do. And it's the same as when I'm in the ring, and my coach will always say and use me as an example to others. It's just like, listen to your corner. And that's one thing, that I know I can do. That if someone says something to me, and I know I've worked with you, Rita, a fair bit, where it's like I know that if I go away with action points, they will get done because I'll say I'll do what I say I'm going to do.
Oh, that's one of the pleasures of working with you is that you are a reflector, and you've called that out as one of the things you do, even in real time, when you're in the ring or not. But yeah, you do. You kind of you're intentional about what you're going to do, and
Yeah.
I've not ever heard you make a commitment that you didn't maintain. When it's very easy to do, right? Particularly in a coaching conversation, or and not because intentionally we don't want to do things, but because we just forget. But you've got this laser sharp focus that
Yeah,
comes.
I think look, I think it comes like in my past, and like I'm very self-aware. I'm very critical of myself as well. So it's like you know, I've got standards, and like I thrive towards excellence, but excellence doesn't always show up the way you want it to be. And it's about being, courageous in allowing that. Like I care about, being clear and accountable and supporting people. It's like as in like a fight, like I'd finish a fight, but I win or lose, it's going to be. Like outside of the ring, life happens, and we just hug and hugs, and you get on with it. And it's just there's no bad blood.
Yeah.
I think a workplace is going to be the same. You're going to come across, have these different opinions, or of doing work. But at the end of the day, there's an outcome, and as long as you're going towards the same outcome, that's what matters, not how we get there.
Marianne, you mentioned something there. You said excellent doesn't always show up the way that you might want it to. What do you mean by that?
Excellence to people can be different. Like, showing up could be enough for one person, whereas somebody else goes by the numbers and by the quality of work. But are you doing that quality of work, or giving them the numbers from a from an honest, transparent way?
Mm.
You know, is there quality behind what you're saying that has been done? Have you been transparent? Have you been you know, have you taken people's skills and who they are into account when you're making those decisions?
I think it's a really important point because often, in leadership, we as leaders, we will have a particular perspective in our mind of how that thing needs to be done or how it needs to be rolled out or executed or whatever, particularly when we're delegating. But someone else's, standard might be different to ours. So when you found yourself, not in the boxing ring, but in the leadership ring, when you found yourself, leading people and where there is this difference in your version of excellence and their version of excellence, how do you approach them around that?
Um, it's a conversation, and sometimes it's hard to have those conversations, but that's where the courage comes in. Like, um, it's about, yeah, I think it's just about having those hard conversations and knowing that you want to walk away with a result, like being curious about someone's, excellence. What does it look like for you?
Yeah.
Why is that excellent to you? How do you get there? And then it's just, the next thing is about, creating a structure where you can both be excellent and not feel like, you're forever butting heads or you have to get aggressive to get in there to be the better person.
Mm. So is that conversation? So you've talked about the conversation. You've talked about courage because it does require courage sometimes to have that conversation, particularly when you know that the person is not intentionally not meeting your standard of excellence, but maybe maybe their capability is all it can be, right?
Yeah. And that's when that curiosity, like you just
Yeah,
got to get curious about
yeah,
why it is what it is.
yeah, yeah. And then do you find that in those moments that you've been curious, does that help you in terms of kind of reconciling, okay, I've got a version or a view of what it needs to be, you've got another version. Does that
Yeah.
curiosity help?
Oh, 100%. Like I remember not long ago that, I had a challenge at work, and I remember um having to be curious. And you said to me, are why don't you ask the questions about, and I did. So it took me courage to go up to this person and speak to them and have that conversation. Like, why is it that that you need X, Y, and Z, and you do things the way that they do? And what I learned from that is that that's all they knew. That's all they knew. That's as far as it went. And what they needed to show is, there was things going on for them personally, and it was just reflecting on other people and how they present. Like, okay, so we've taken that, and so like my way of communicating, I started to become lesser. I wasn't as, should I say, abrupt or confronting with getting my information from them, but it's about rewriting what I feel about that person and how I feel about the workload to be able to get what I need to be able to deliver what I need to do. They are who they are, and I'm never going to be able to change that, but accepting that and adapting to how they work to get the outcomes that I need.
Yeah. In that, then it sounds like, it's we then know what we're working with, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the set of variables, you now, that curiosity from what you're describing there helps us to understand, okay, so these are the variables that I'm working with. And now I've got to maybe change my game plan around how I work with these sets of variables.
Yeah, and it goes back to that thing that, we're working in different departments, but our outcome's the same, but how we get there may be different. So I'll always use that, like in leadership, it's like we all start together and we're all going to finish together, but whatever happens in the middle is completely up to you. And that's that accountability of empowering your team to do what they do. Like you might use a spreadsheet, you might use, and paper and pen, or you might be someone who learns differently, but does it matter? Like, do we have to all use a spreadsheet? Probably in most cases, no, but we're going to get there.
Yeah, yeah. That's great because that really is a helicopter view perspective, right? On kind of not what you're saying. That reminds me to not sweat the detail too much because we, as you say, we start and we end at the same place, but how the method can be different as long as we
Yeah.
kind of start and finish in the same place.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot with my with the gyms that I own, and when like you're running group classes and you've got like people from different fitness levels, like people who walk, people who run, but what you do is like we all start together on this run, and and we're all going to finish at a point, but how you get there, if you take that part, if you take the path in front of you, or if you go around the corner, it doesn't matter, we're all going to finish at the same time.
Yeah,
And it's the same as like in a workplace. We've got
yeah,
a project to deliver, we'll deliver it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and as you said, we'll get there, and we'll kind of the team can carry. Um, in terms of leadership, when you said 20 odd years in leadership, which is phenomenal. So much experience would have been built over that time. Did you always intend to be a leader, or are you kind of always think about a born leader or like an accidental leader? Which
Uh,
one are you?
Funny story. So when I finished uni, I actually got a scholarship to go and study medical science, And so as like I was growing up, oh, I'm going to do, medical science, la la la. Anyway, I started working at Transurban, like before they even opened up the tollways. And I, just started into whatever. The CEO one day approached me and he's just like, oh, you should be a supervisor. I'm not going to be a supervisor. Like I was on, it's like, no way, I can't do this. Anyway, I ended up becoming a supervisor, and I guess that's when people started to notice that I just lead, like even in a pod of people, like I'd do something and people just did what I did. Um, then about 2 or 3 years later, his name was Brendan Burke, who was the CEO. He came to me, he was like, why don't you do a master's degree in business? I'm like, me? Absolutely no way I'm gonna, no way. He's like, I think you'll be good at it. He ended up applying on my behalf to the University of New South Wales at the time. And because I was still in my 20s, I was younger than your average cohort of people um, doing their MBAs. I got in and they sponsored me. And basically, yeah, I ended up becoming a national project manager under Transurban as well. And my leadership sort of started there until I'm just like, oh, I go to classes and they're all older than me and they don't know FMCG and they know it goes, well, maybe you should try a different industry. And um, I'm like, nah, like that's what I do. I just know Transurban as my corporate. So I ended up applying for a job in manufacturing, like as a national client services manager for Canterbury Windows and Doors. And they just like, we don't have a female on in our senior management team, etc., etc. Just like, nah, I could do this. I know I can do this. Get as many references as you want. Ended up getting the job and staying there. And that was sort of like my courage of like stepping into something I don't know. It's a male dominated industry. Um, and then again, as it comes to my deliberate move, I guess, in everything that I do. And so then I'm just like, oh, I like what I'm doing, but I need to go back to the service industry. So after that, I ended up writing a letter to Sue Moffat, who was the CEO of Pacific Brands, Bonds, and I said, this is who I am. I'm looking for a role, etc., etc. And she ended up creating a role for me with Pacific Brands. And I think, like I said, everything that I do, it's like it needs to have a reason. I need to have a purpose of why I'm going to be working wherever I'm working. And I think that's, that's what makes me feel like I'm a born leader without actually knowing it.
Yeah.
That's just the way I naturally am.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier on Maryanne self, like leading self. So when you wrote to Sue Moffat, who was the CEO of Pacific Brands, did you have a connection or did someone refer you? So it was completely cold.
Yeah, yeah,
That blows my mind. So
yeah.
because you would not expect a CEO of that kind of business to
No,
respond
no.
directly. What do you reckon it was that piqued her interest when she saw your letter?
That I was just brave. Like I reckon that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's no different than when I went. Like times have changed now, but it's the same as when I went to to Canterbury Windows and Doors. Like, there was the recruiter there was just like, oh, this the some of the board members are friends of mine, so I can't let them down. And like, tell me this story. And it's just like, we haven't had a female senior leader in this company. I was like, that doesn't scare me, like, and then part of my learning through leadership skills, like through my MBA, it was about how to talk to people. And so I used to have this man, this sales manager used to come into my office, and his office was like physically above my office. And he'd come in and he'd put his hands on my desk and just look down at me while I'm talking. And so I'd come the night before I was at uni, and I said to him, let's just call him Tom. His name wasn't Tom. But Tom, okay, if you're here to talk to me about work, there's a seat. Please take a seat, or you can go back to your office and you can send me an email. Because I wanted to see him face to face. You're not going to be looking down at me because I'm a female. And that was it. He went back to his office and he sent me an email and he CC'd my boss, whose office was next to me. And my boss looked at me and said, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." A thumbs up, dealt with it. Everything's fine. He knew from then on when he's going to come to me, you sit down, you talk to me like another human being, or you can send me an email and I'll address it that way. So I learned, I think, very young, through my studies, and I loved it. Like, I loved how I could just go back to work and just apply what I've learned.
But good on you. I mean, that would have taken a whole heap of courage and bravery to kind of look him in the eye and go, these are the
Oh,
terms. If you want to talk to me, these are the terms. You either sit your bum down on that chair or you go back and send me an email.
yeah, and
Amazing.
he would like, and it wasn't like he'd do things like we would have a board meeting, and he would, like, I'd be writing something on the board, and he's just like, I've got a question. Why aren't you using the top of the board? Because I'm short, and these offices were made for like, like big tables, And so one of the logistics managers stood up and he goes, "Marianne," he goes, "I'll prescribe for you." So he stood up and he, like, like, I had this support around me.
Yeah.
Even, yeah, and it's one of these things, like, I never got emotional. It's like, whatever, like,
Yeah.
like, humility is important. Like, it's
Yeah.
important just to be humble and just go with it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
And just
hiding
that
anything.
human to human connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So you're, by the sounds of it, because you said, that first leadership job when they put you into that supervisor role at Transurban. For those of you that don't know Transurban, they run all our tolls here in Victoria, in Australia. Um, and you went into that role and you naturally, by the sounds of it, started to lead. Has
Yeah.
that always been the case for you? Like, even, as a little kid at school, like in different elements and aspects of your life, have you always been that person to just go, "Yep, here's what we're going to do"?
Well, I'll share a little bit about my background as a child. So I actually grew up through the system, so homes for kids. And so my life was I didn't grow up in a structured family life. So I had to always, like, take care of myself, keep myself safe, not say much. And I think that's my self-awareness. Like, I knew what I wanted, and I sort of, like, never went down the path of, like, your average child who lives in resi units of drugs and alcohol and bad behavior. Where I loved to study and I wanted to learn, and like, the first time I ever ran away from home, they found me at school, like, underneath my class desk in grade 3. And so I think that, to me, like, when you ask me this kind of question, I'm just like, actually, I always have led. I've led myself. I've kept myself, alive and safe and where I am today. So, um, yeah, I don't know why when he said to me, "Oh, you got to become a leader," I'm just like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm just in the loop. I just do whatever I want to do, and it's not. That's just, and to this day, like, I'll still lead and mentor people and young kids, and everything I do now that I'm thinking about it's just like, actually, I lead and I coach, and that's just who I am, without even, I guess, realizing until you've just asked me the question. Yeah.
But Marianne, what I so love about what you've just said, and you've said it a few times in this conversation, is that your acknowledgement is that leadership for you started with leading self. It wasn't because you were given the team and it wasn't because you were given the title. And from the sounds of it, I can see you going, if someone's giving you that leadership role, I can see you going, what? Like, because you were already doing it. Like
Yeah.
for you, it was not a foreign or a new thing, or oh,
Um,
so today now I'm a leader because they've given me the title and a bigger desk. Like it wasn't that because you were already doing it.
And I think there's something like now that like you've got me thinking about it, it's like I think it's got something to do with the personality as well. Like
Yeah.
it's you know, I think a true leader is I don't think I could lead teams if I couldn't lead myself.
Yeah. What do you reckon are the crossovers or the things that you from leading self and all the for the years that you have done that, since a child where you have led yourself, what do you take from that time into leading people now in workplaces?
Um, what do I take? I guess I don't know. I think of what do I, is it more like what do I give others from what I do?
Yeah, it's kind of like
Mm.
from even when you were a kid, those lessons that you developed when you were leading self. What are those lessons that you now take into leading teams?
I think resilience is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I think resilience is huge. Discipline and courage. Like I just got to start, like I had to self-trust.
Yeah.
I needed to believe in me.
Yeah.
So many moments of, I needed to just be prepared for the worst. And, you know, I sometimes I won't have answers and I don't know when, that what tomorrow's going to bring me. But, like I'd have like I remember, I think I told you this the other day, like I have a diary and one of my goals was when I was back in 1997, I was like 17. And one of my goals was that I wanted to be earning $40,000 by the time I'm 40, and that was, and I was on that by the time I was 20, but it was like I needed a goal. I needed to just trust that I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you're leading teams, it's the same. Like, you're clear about the goals, but also allowing them to just trust that they can get there through empowerment.
Yeah.
Like I'm still to this day, I'm not good with micromanagement. Like I can't handle someone being above me, like breathing down my neck on what needs to be done. And I feel the same when I'm leading teams. Like I don't want to be that person, and I'm naturally not. And sometimes that could be, that's not a good thing because I just sort of expect things to be done and they haven't been done. It's like, well, why should I have to check up on you for, And that's, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, I don't do it like because I don't care, but it's more about I want to make you feel empowered, but I still also need to realize and be in tune that that person may be someone who just needs extra support.
Yeah.
So
And maybe, those things that you've talked about, like courage and bravery and that curiosity, that support that you talk about is often in those types of things. Not, I mean, the delegation of the task is kind of the easy bit. But when you're in, an environment, a workplace, if there's a blocker, I reckon most of the time it's actually not the technical skill because the technical skill is quite easy to be taught, right? But
yeah,
most of the time, I reckon it's that the behavioral
100%.
attitude.
It's like I always say, like, in any of my jobs or coaching that I do, it's not like you can teach someone a skill, but you can't teach them a personality.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. So, do you reckon there is a particular personality type for leadership? Like, are there some personalities where you go, you should never ever touch leadership?
Um, I well, y yes, I think. I feel like someone who is not open to adaptability, someone who can't pivot.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's a hard one. someone who, is reactive all the time,
Yeah.
that'd make it hard because I think in leadership, like you need to be, and I guess like even in deliberate leadership, like it's not about being perfect or it's not about having all the answers, but it's about being able to pause and go, okay, is there a different way of doing things? And if you can't think of that question and ask yourself that question, then I think it'd be hard to lead.
Yeah. Because then you're going into that reactive mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you just kind of, it's like that thing that I was talking, it's about staying calm under pressure. Like it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Have you always been like that, kind of calm under pressure and composed, or have there been certain lessons along the way that have helped you to develop that?
no, I've always been,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that I know that as
Yeah.
a kid growing up, it's just like, yeah, you're never going to know how I really feel underneath because you don't, not that it's not important, but it's just, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in healthy for others to see that or healthy for
Or,
you to feel it?
um, healthy for others, for the environment. Like
Yeah.
if there is if there is a challenging situation and everyone's already like, having their views and emotional, etc. And as a leader, if I come in and do the same, I'm only just feeding into that environment rather
Mhm.
than if I'm just pausing, I reset, I can think clearer and I could probably give a couple more other options to be able to resolve an issue
Mm.
rather than get, amongst it all. Like I remember one time a situation happened at work and, and it was just like, you know, gossip and crap and things. And I've only, I was just new to this team and to this company. And I ended up, and they're just known to like love that gossip. And he said, she said, all that sort of stuff. So I actually just pulled them all into the boardroom. And I'm like, you've got 10 minutes to talk about it. But once we all go back to our tents and to our chairs, I don't want to hear anything about it anymore. No more. And that's exactly what happened. So one of the ladies who was there, she's been with the company for 30 plus years. Like she was, she comes up and she's just like, Marianne, I'm just gonna say, I've been here like 30 plus years and this is the first time something's happened and it's just been shut down. She's been good on you, like it's really nice of her to come up and say that. But it was just like, I don't want to hear it. Like we've got a job to do. It's none of our business.
Yeah.
We open that door, it's all done with. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like containing it, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
have your piece, let's say it, but then also it's that healthy, let's move on, and not get
Because
dragged
I had
down
nothing,
by it.
yeah, it was someone's personal issue, like it was just nuts. Like it was in a factory, like I was
Yeah.
working in a manufacturing, like you just imagine. But
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, we're in this room, talk about it, we leave, we get back to our work. That's it. You've had your say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't shut them all down. I didn't have to just, go on about it for days, but it was just like giving them that space. But if I was to get caught up in it, like what kind of leader am I? Like, am I going to let my team create a toxic environment? No.
Yeah. There's really good research now that backs up. So the gentleman's name is Ethan Kross, but he wrote a book called Chatter, and it does support what you're saying there, that the more air and time we give to chatter, kind of, more issues that are more trivial in nature that, can probably be resolved relatively quickly, the more damage we do. Because what we do is we're continuing to feed
Eat into it. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
rather than just let it, kind of simmer down and so we can all move on. Learn the lessons, obviously, from it, get the insights, make sure that people feel heard, but also then kind of move it on. So there's good research to back that up too.
Mm.
Maryanne, what are you still learning about yourself as a leader, even 20 years on?
Um, what am I still learning? I'm learning structure, I think. And I think like especially like in operations when you're working with different departments, everything seems to be urgent. Um, you don't just have one team, you've got multiple teams on different levels. And it's like it's having to have that balance of like everyone is just as important, sometimes when you're working with remote people, it can be like some people can be forgotten. So it's having, yeah, so balance is a big thing.
Yeah. So you said balance and the structure. What else?
Um, Hierarchy, like sometimes you can struggle with hierarchy.
And where does that struggle show up for you? Because that kind of it's similar to structure, I guess. But where
The
does that,
hierarchy.
yeah, where does if that feels off to you, how does that show up?
I think it's in expectations. Like sometimes you find it in people's expectations in the way of like not where you're heading, but it's also about the communication, like how they expect to be communicated with. Um, and sometimes, you sort of like need to have those again difficult conversations with people on like higher than you or lesser than you. And it's like how much is too much?
Yeah. I think, managing up, a lot of people, there's so many queries and questions I get almost on a daily basis about managing up. How do I do it? How do I do it,
Yeah,
efficiently?
what's right? Yeah, exactly. Like what's right, what's wrong? Like, how much can you do without feeling you're overstepping the line? Yeah.
I think also too, when we're managing up, it goes back to that expectation point that you raised, that it's about influence when we're managing up, but also there's vulnerability, because we might have a view of what that next level leader expects of us.
Yeah.
Can we deliver it? Do we have the capability, the capacity? Do we have the right set of behaviors? Do we have all the things we need to know, the knowledge, in order to meet those expectations?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes like I guess it's more about like we want to especially like in a community setting or not-for-profit setting, like you want to sort of like, not play the power ball, yeah, the space of, who's who and be all on the same level. But sometimes it's actually quite challenging to do that without like, even if you name it and go, this isn't about power, this is like, us being on one team, but yet that person still knows who you are by title, like they are respecting you without like, so you're going to get that. Yeah, of course we're one team, like of course we're all on the same level, but internally they know more than that, and without even having to talk about it, that just exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think like it's important, like, so for me that's it, like I know it, like you know it, but it's just like it's not talked about, but it's about showing up and demonstrating that we are a team rather than having just to say it.
That's in the actions, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually more about what we say, what we do, than what we say.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
just showing up, like, I show up, you show up. It's not about like you just showing up and me saying, oh, you have an appointment, I can't turn up.
yeah,
Or, it, like actually just doing the work, like be hands-on with them.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Love it. I think that I think you've hit the nail on the head there with expectations, but also um, where we started that from that question, which was structure. In terms of what you're still learning about yourself as a leader.
Mm.
Um, Boxing. Let's take it back to boxing because that's where we started. Um, the next fight that you go into,
Probably
do you?
November.
Yeah, November. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears peeled for that one. Here in Victoria, Maryanne, here in Victoria,
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will definitely keep our eyes and ears open and let listeners and viewers know when that is on. It's absolutely it's an adrenaline pumping event. Everyone should get to one at one point or another. So next time you're getting into the ring and you're about to, you're preparing with your game plan, are you going to do anything differently to what you did last time based on your reflection, your insight?
Um, Repetition. I think I'm going to just be working a lot on repetitions. Like yesterday, I went for a long run, which I hadn't done for like 15 years. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but I didn't. Um, and so knowing that my cardio is there, but it's just like I think it's just one of these things that you could never stop learning. You
Yeah.
never stop practicing. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, so for me, it's just like staying consistent. Yep. Like I'm going away soon, but it doesn't mean like I've already found a gym where I'm going.
Yeah.
Staying consistent, that's important to me because if I don't, things start to taper away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last time we spoke, and we were talking about boxing and leadership, which is what led us to this conversation. But
Yeah.
from what you're saying there, you talked about technique and discipline and consistency. And you actually, I'm not sure if you remember this, but you actually said repetition is my meditation. And you alluded to that in this conversation. You just said it's like it's the punch and it's the repetitive nature of that punch and that discipline. And I think, Maryanne, when I think about the hundreds and hundreds of leaders that I've worked with, but particularly around deliberate leadership, I think you are somebody that really epitomizes that because you do bring a very, very deliberate approach to it, right? It's just one foot in front of the other. Excellence, which is what you've mentioned today too, but it's just that get it right, get it done. There's a real sense of safety and stability, I imagine, that your teams feel because of how you lead. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, look, if I break down literally everything that I do in boxing into leadership, like I could pretty much so I've got about 5 things that I do in boxing, which I think like I'll say it out loud to you, right?
So as long as you're not giving away your secrets, right?
No, absolutely not. But I guess they're my foundations of what I do in my training, right? So you have a game plan, right? So you always go in there with a strategy. Leadership, same thing. You have a strategy and you adapt to it in real time. I then have my corner, like without my coaches, I listen to my coaches. Like I can block out all the noise in a arena and I can just hear my coaches. So in leadership, it's about the trusting the support that I have, leadership team. My sparring, so this is where I practice my fighting. This is when I go into work and I'm tested under pressure. I've got many things in operation that goes on. Things need to just change, like I need to pivot straight away. That's my sparring. I practice that. My repetitions that I've spoken to you about, like, sometimes I could do the same move, like my jab, like the same move for an hour. Yeah. In leadership, same thing. I am forever practicing consistent habits. I'm not going to be changing the goal stance on my team every day. The respect that we have in boxing. So we go into the gym, we respect one another, we nod, we fist tap. Same thing, staying true to my code at work, my integrity, like showing up when I say I'm, doing things that I say I'm going to be doing. When I recover in boxing, like you have to recover, we get that 1 minute to breathe between our rounds. This is when we finish a project at work and we reset. We look at the lessons learned and then we go back and we learn and we practice again. So I think everything that I do in my boxing, I take it back.
Yeah, I love that so much. So that's trusting the support, the sparring, the repetition, the respect for each other, obviously the integrity that comes in, and then that recovery piece.
Yeah,
that is beautiful. Thank you, Maryanne. I think I love having conversations with you. I love watching you box. I love watching you lead, and I've got 3 pages now of notes because I just love what you shared. So thank you so much today. And I think in fact, I know that a lot of people will take the very special lessons from this. And I think what you bring is that stability, that calmness, but also you make it look effortless. I know it's not for anybody, but you make it look effortless. And I think that's what we need.
I think it's, boxing is one of these things people sort of like see it as, aggression, learning to fight. It's just like, actually, no, it's not. If I'm angry, there's no way you'll see me hit a bag. Like, I just won't.
Yeah. And that is often like, that's such a myth, isn't it? Because often we go, I'm going to like punch a bag to like get rid of some aggression.
Yeah,
but it's actually
people say that to me all the time. It's like, I'm so stressed out. I'm like, I would never touch a bag if I'm angry because that means what I know and what I'm good at, I'll lose it. Like I won't be as good as I am because I'm working under pressure. Like I'm not going to do that. So
Yeah.
it's really funny when I hear people saying that, like, it's like, why?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Maryanne, thank you so much for joining me on the Deliberate Leader podcast today. It's been a real
Thanks for
pleasure.
having me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
What a treat to have participated in that conversation with Maryanne Dibb. She's an extraordinary leader, and I literally have pages of notes, right, from that conversation. I hope you do too. If you've been walking or exercising or driving as you've been listening to the podcast, this is one I think to go back to and to listen to again. Maryanne had some real amazing insights in there, but just some of the things that she talked about specifically that really stood out for me is that, for her, boxing, and she's learnt heaps, obviously, from boxing and leadership, but it's not at all aggressive or a form of aggression. And she actually says, if I'm angry, I would never, ever touch the punching bag or even get into the ring. So for her, it's her meditation. She uses it to continue to develop discipline, resilience, courage, curiosity, all of these beautiful characteristics that we need in leadership. My favorites from the conversation, Maryanne says that she preps, she plans, she pivots before finding an outcome. That is both within the boxing ring and outside of the boxing ring. And she really, really incorporates reflection into leadership and in boxing, even in those moments where the stakes are really high and you're about to cop a jab cross to the face, if that's a technical term. But when you're about to, you find yourself in that position, she still has this amazing ability to just stop and reflect even in those high stakes moments. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Maryanne. I certainly did. See you next time.